Hey there, it's Missy Zarbach with the Magnificent Method, and today I'm going to talk about love or fear. And so I had someone ask me to do a video on grief, and I tried several times to put a video together, and I don't script these, and so this all comes from I channel and it comes from within. Um, I kept wanting to talk about when someone dies, how we need to lean into the woo-woo, and how oftentimes I don't recommend leaning into the woo-woo because I like to see results. But when it comes down to it, um, when someone dies or a relationship ends in an untimely fashion, in a way that you're not happy with, because we absolutely do grieve relationships that have ended of people that are still living. Um, I really suggest you looking at your emotions like a binary system. We all know what binary is, ones and zeros, right? And so look at your emotions in that same light. And so either I'm coming from love or I'm coming from fear. Either I'm looking at lack or I'm looking at abundance. And this is kind of the master key. And so once, I've read a multitude of religious texts. I've read a multitude of scientific texts. And as a metaphysician, it's kind of my job to bridge science and spirituality. And so when I look at quantum life, I see a scientist, the most beautiful minds on this planet, that tell me that energy cannot be created or destroyed. And then when you look at religion and you look at spirituality, and you have the most beautiful hearts and souls on the planet that say, my God cannot be created or destroyed. You have two different schools, two different countries using two different languages to explain the exact same thing. It's the same thing, guys. And so what I do is I'm a translator between science and spirit, and I really get into the nitty-gritty of this, and I really have to break it down. What I'm going to tell you, the master key to all of this, and it doesn't matter where your personal philosophy lies, what I want to say to you is that if you're a hard-wing religious fanatic, you are the exact same, and you are the energetic opposite of a scientific fanatic. And so when you have scientists that don't believe in spirit or source, I absolutely believe that these people are the same as a religious person who thinks that the planet is 6,000 years old. And so I'm not bashing anybody. They're just are truths that we can understand, that can be proven. And so just like we can prove that the earth is older than 6,000 years old, I can prove with my feelings that there is a mystical side to life. I can prove with the sensations that I get in my body that there's a mystical side to life. I can prove with feeling the presence of those that have passed that there's a mystical side to life. And I don't need to be able to reproduce that in a lab to prove that it's true. We have to let go of that idea. And so we need the hard sciences for a ton of different reasons. But when I know that energy can't be created or destroyed, when somebody dies, that energy has to go somewhere. It has to be transmuted into something. What I also know is that the body doesn't house the soul. The soul houses the body, because I, as a metaphysician, I can see aura, and it's something that I've done since I was a child. But I know people can learn to see aura, and this is kind of when you see, religious saints and Christ depicted, the mother, the Virgin. Normally they'll have this halo around their head. That halo is what we refer to as an aura, and so this is outside of the body. It's not inside the body. The spirit, the soul houses the body. And what happens to that when someone dies, or what happens to that when that spirit and soul gets detached from you, what you consider to be you, singular, that's detached from this huge grid of entanglement. There's actually in the scientific philosophies, there's something called unified field theory, where everything collects on this tapestry, or this field, and everything is a part of this field. The Native Americans, call it this great web, referring to like a spider's web. Everything is connected to this web. Nothing can ever get away from it. We're all made of the same stuff. We're all made of the same goo. And, Alan Watts has this theory on gooey people or prickly people. Are you religious or are you scientific? And so if we want to look really closely at it, everybody's either kind of gooey prickly or prickly gooey. There's no separation of these two. And so we call that duality. And duality is kind of the downfall of modern society. But what we have are our individual minds, and what we have is the power to think, and what we have is the power to question. And so question everything. Question, is the earth 6,000 years old? How do you know? Have you read about it? Have you done any research? I have a friend who's a geologist, and she's done this research, and she knows very well that the earth is much older than 6,000 years old. And then, have you ever seen a ghost in your life? Have you ever had an experience like that? You've had your own two eyes. You have your own two eyes. You have your own mind to think about these things. And what I want you to do is to begin to step out into love and fear. And so, if a relationship is ended in an untimely fashion and in a way that, you consider to be unsavory, am I coming from love or fear? Do I still send this person my love, or do I fear that I'm never going to have that kind of connection with another human being again? Where are you really coming from? If a person is passed on to a different place, whether that be heaven or a different dimension, whatever your philosophy is, once again, am I coming from lack or abundance? Am I lacking this person, or do I live in an abundant universe where I can use my woo-woo, what I want you to lean into on this really hard, I can use that woo-woo, I can use my psychic abilities, I can use my spirit, my source, I can use my God and my angels, my spirit guides to be able to contact that entity, and maybe not have a conversation with that entity, but maybe I can feel their presence in my life, or maybe they can help guide me in some way, or maybe they can leave little gifts or totems for me, feathers, or some people think that red balloons, for whatever reason, is a sign that this person is in their life. I know it's been my personal experience that when somebody's passed on, I can absolutely feel their presence around me. I can absolutely see them in my dreams and know that that energy is still present and available. I will say that some people do get caught in grief, and they get stuck, and it's difficult, and they have to be scraped up off the floor with a spatula, and oftentimes you'll find that this is either their spouse or their child that's passed away. I don't think that we should put a time stamp on how long you should grieve your spouse or your child. I don't think that we should do that at all. I think that it's tragic that, if your spouse passes away, if you have a corporate job, you get 3 days before you have to come back from work, go back to work. I don't think that that wound ever closes, I think, but you can care for that wound in a smart way. I think that having a journal that is specifically for that person, if you have a funny memory and you want to write it down, or if you find that you're picking up your phone to call and you can't make a phone call to somebody who's, transmuted to a different place, write that down. Or if you're just pissed, if that was your husband of, 45 years and he's gone now and you have to sleep by yourself for the next 20 years because nobody else will do, and you're pissed, write it down. Or, maybe your child would have been graduating high school this year and you're devastated because you have to watch all of these kids graduate this year. That brings tears to my eyes as a mom, like, what a terrible thing to have to do, but write that down. You can get through it. And I've never even had a child that's passed away, and as a mother I can connect in that way. Death is just as much a part of life as birth is, but we selfishly attach ourselves to a person, and it's not a selfless thing to sit in grief. You're not honoring that person by being blindsided by grief for 15 or 20 or 40 or 30 or like however long you've been grieving. You're not honoring the soul of that person by being in a state of dis-ease. And so you have to find your happiness. You have to find it. And I did make a video on happiness, and I strongly suggest you get back to that video and you figure that out. But you need to reach out and you need to be supported in this. This is not a time to be alone. And whether it's grieving a relationship or it's grieving the death of someone that you held dear, you have to be in a place where you can reach out to people and you have people who know how to hold space, and who know how to tell you when it's time to move forward. Another way that you can individually learn how to move forward is once you begin to have the thoughts like, is this normal? Maybe, maybe I shouldn't be thinking this way anymore. This is kind of an indicator that it's time to begin your happy practices again, your happiness practices again. Know your happiness tools. You have to know yourself and what truly makes you happy. And you will begin to move on and you will begin to heal as much as you can heal. I think that sometimes when people pass away, that never stops hurting. But I think that you can honor them with your passionate life. And I think that you can honor them with your joy and your bliss. And I think you absolutely can get to a point where you can send that person your love, or you can send that broken friendship your love, or you can send that, even your ex-spouse, you can send your ex-spouse love. My ex-husband has moved on and he's married to a beautiful woman now and she's lovely, and I don't ever have a day any longer where I think of him and I think a negative thought, even though our relationship didn't work out, and it was hard to get through that initially. Now when I think of him, I think of what an amazing father he is, and I think of how happy I am that his life is so great now. You really do get to a point where you can send love instead of anger or fear. And you really can get to a place, when somebody has passed away, where you can send them your love instead of your anger or your fear. If you want to know more about this, I strongly suggest, reaching out and having a support group. I suggest you Google the phrase being present. What am I doing in this moment? How can I look around and see abundance? If you don't know how to get in touch with abundance, I suggest you try to count all the leaves on a tree. And I'm being dead serious. I suggest you try to count all the leaves on a tree. And you will very quickly get in contact with what abundance is and how there's life everywhere we are, and how everything around us is thriving, and how we're intended to do the same. So I hope this covers it. This is a really hard topic to cover. If you have questions, please contact me. I can talk about this more if you'd like. But mostly I want to say, fall back on that binary. Are you coming from love or fear? Every text I've ever read, we think that it's this, this huge idea that nobody can ever really understand and nobody will ever know truly what the truth is. And I gotta call bullshit on that. I have to say that we do know the truth and that you're worthy of true perception. It is your birthright to have true perception, and it's your birthright to seek truth. And so you know the truth by the way that it feels. And if it resonates with you, keep going. Keep going on that path. Okay, so this is Missy Zarbach with the Magnificent Method. This was love or fear. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. This can be healed. You can heal. You can do it. I promise.